Hey, and there we go. Welcome everyone to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is match day. It is Thursday, the 26th of September. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined by a full-strength squad this morning. Unlike Rangers, first of all, Joshua, how are we doing, Joshua?
Good. Still absolutely chucking it down in Malmo.
You're
For anyone who's I know you're not here yet, but you're shortly to arrive. Bring your, as mentioned yesterday, bring your big jacket.
Yeah, I'm hot-footing it I'm in a hotel near the Emirates. I'm hot-footing it to Stansted shortly after this video for a flight to Copenhagen, and then straight to that away end, which will be quite something, I'm sure. Chris Jack also joins us to look ahead to tonight's game. How's it going, Chris?
I'll be hot-footing it nowhere, and especially if the weather's like that. So I'll stay warm and cozy in the house, and do what I have to do from back at base here.
Good stuff. Excellente. Right, let's talk all things at Rangers. Joshua, you and Johnny were on last night to give your reaction to an interesting press conference from the manager, Connor Barron, also up for the press, speaking ahead of tonight's game against Malmo. The big news, there's no doubt about it. I know you guys touched on it last night. Oscar Cortes out for several weeks. Boy just can't catch a break.
No.
I've seen the reaction to this. I, for one, when I was all for championing Rangers getting this lad's re-signed on a new deal, Joshua, but I thought a new loan deal from Lons would be the right way to go, given his injury situation last season. The obligation to buy low looks like it might be a bit of a costly mistake, will it not?
Yeah, I believe that was the only way to get him back, because, as you say, his stock isn't at the highest at the moment, is it, Derek? But this is a player who was very highly rated, regarded a couple of years ago or a year ago even. He's still only 20, as one of the most exciting young players in Colombian football. Had already made his debut for the top Colombian first team at, I think, 19, maybe 20. It had been a standout in the under 23 championships. And when he has played, you can see he's a very good player. The difficulty is he's hardly played. As Johnny and I discussed last night, he came in, played, 5-6 games in a row, had that injury against Kilmarnock. You don't see him again until the start of this season. Then on the opening day of the season, he limps off against Hearts. And then obviously the news yesterday emerged that he hadn't been in training. It was obviously an open training session. The Rangers had a part open training session before they flew over to Malmo for the press conference later in the day. And it's a big blow for a lot of reasons, not least because Clement last season continually had to put square pegs in round holes. And it's going to be the same tonight. It's going to be the same for a little bit on the left wing as well. I don't think if you're playing Barami and Lawrence in that number 10 left wing position at home, and let's remember that Rangers have 3 home games coming up before the next international break after this game, with St Johnstone, Hibs and Lyon to come. Particularly those 2 domestic games, I think you can get by with Chefty as your kind of left winger in possession. He gives you a nice natural width, and you've got then Barami and Lawrence moving inside. The difficulty is tonight, what do you do? And next week against Lyon, what do you do? Because then you really lack a lot of balance and a lack of width out wide. Clement's missing his first 2 left back picks, and he's missing his first 2 left wing picks in Cortes and Rabbi Matondo as well. So Rangers have been light on the wings ever since he came into the club, and unfortunately for him, weather bad luck, and that's what he insisted it was at the press conference last night when asked, is there a persistent issue here, because this is Cortes' 3rd injury since coming to the club. Insists it is just bad luck, but it leaves him again without a natural left winger as well as no natural left back heading to Malmo tonight.
Yeah, he's injury prone, Chris. There's no two ways about it for me. Magic Man 147 says, can't spend $4 million on a player that's never fit. This could be a very costly error of judgment, I think, perhaps from Rangers. As Joshua says, he is a young lad, but alarm bells are ringing at this moment in time. And it's not a case of he's just out for this game and they'll keep them for the weekend. Several weeks is not good.
Several weeks is also quite vague. So is several 3 or is several 9? Exactly. If it's 3, it's perhaps not as big a blow. You're then looking after next international break. If it's the top end of that scale that I've just laid out, then that's a lot of football that he's going to miss. I think it was after maybe the St Johnstone game at Hampden. Josh and I spoke post-match about Clement having these 2 natural wingers in the team. I can't remember if it's that game or not. Certainly one of the Hampden games. about how he's waited so long to have natural width and natural pace within this squad. So often last season he had to put Fabio Silva there, Dujon Sterling played there, didn't have the wide options. Right wing we know has been a problem for Rangers for a long time. Something that he sought to try and address in the transfer market. If you have Czerny and Cortes, plus then your striker, clearly going to be Cyril Dessers, that looks a decent enough forward line. When you start taking players out of it, the options just aren't there for Rangers. It then becomes guys doing a job, guys that you're given a chance and hoping that they can produce something. Rabbi Matondo, of course, not fit again. That's not a long-term solution. Ross McCausland has his backers, certainly has his critics. You're then looking at, well, we'll move Jeff the upper line, taking him out of the position that he's played very well in. Obviously, that's not even an option tonight, so it's not ideal. I know people are throwing around the comparisons of he's the new Phil Hollander, he's the new Kamal Roof, he's the new Seb Rosenthal. Let's not write the boy off just yet. I think they're all slightly different injuries, as the manager said yesterday. This type of injury, it's the same in training, can be picked up in a game situation. Sometimes it's just your luck, but Rangers' luck has been against them so often over the last couple of seasons. You can understand why people are. I think it's beyond fed up. It's beyond scunnered with injury situation now. This was meant to be the season where this was sorted, and whether it is bad preparation, as the manager has perhaps indicated previously, whether it is just bad luck, Rangers need to try and find a way of breaking this cycle, because you can't spend that amount of money in fees and wages on players that are not fit.
It's a huge frustration, there's no doubt about it. Thomas with the point, Danilo Cortes and Ridvan, all expensive signings and have all sustained injuries. Dreadful luck. It always seems to happen to the high-profile additions, players that are on big money at Rangers. And we're not going to see Oscar Cortes for some time, so it does free up that position. I'd imagine a few comments coming in that we will continue to see Nadim Bayrami over on that left-hand side, despite being brought in as a number 10. Interestingly as well, this caught me by surprise last night, Joshua, on just the manager. He's been linked with Anderlecht, which came out of the blue for me. I think a player over there said he thinks he would be a good fit for Anderlecht, but he addressed that at the press conference last night. He said, want to speak about that. It's really clear I engaged myself long term for Rangers last month, so whoever comes, whatever team comes, I'm not going away. I'm really clear I want this project with the club to make it really successful in the future. And we all know we need time for that. We need a few transfer windows for that. And we need a lot of work to do for that. That's what I want to do because I love the city. I love the club. I love the dynamic at Ibrox with the fans. So I'm here to stay. What do you make of that?
Yeah, Johnny and I touched upon it last night and pretty emphatic. I mean, again, to not, hopefully not repeat myself too much from last night, I think Clement is sincere when he talks about the fact that he wanted to come to a particular club, and he's really taken to all the elements of being Rangers manager. It's not been easy, and simultaneously he still has questions to answer. If you speak to people, one of the things I think that Clement struggled with at Monaco was the lack of home crowd, the lack of real significance of result, which you get maybe at previous clubs he's worked at. As well as Rangers, he had offers to go elsewhere and make more money, and then he's making at Rangers when he signed a contract last October. A lot's happened since last October, and he spent a lot of time speaking about, again, to reiterate what Johnny and I spoke about last night, he spent a lot of time speaking about issues and problems that either he wasn't here to answer for, he wasn't part of the team or the football board or whatever it may be that made them, or aren't in his jurisdiction whatsoever. And that started to come out a little bit more in his answers recently when he's been discussing the fact that John Gilligan has been speaking. Clement has actually effectively turned into a Rangers spokesman, which I don't think is a fair position to put him into because it's too much of a responsibility. And again, he's speaking about decisions that he's not accountable for, decisions he's probably not made, and decisions that just aren't within his jurisdiction as a football manager. He's used to working as the coach of the team, not in the British style where we still have that kind of cult of the manager, don't we? He's used to working in a system, he's used to working in a system where it's not just him going and handpicking players, which is how that shouldn't be the case. Anyway, so you sense he's maybe a little bit more comfortable than he was a few weeks ago, even though there's still so many issues to resolve because you need that CEO, you need that chairman. Rangers are only in an interim position at the moment, aren't they? They've not solved the issues. James Bisgrove left months and months ago, and they still don't have a CEO in place. So by no means are those issues solved. But yeah, you do sense that there's a sincerity to him saying that. And again, to reiterate what I said with Johnny last night, the thing is, Clement still has stuff to prove, doesn't he? As Chris comes back to, he needs to be able to beat Celtic. He needs to try and be able to recapture the momentum that he built up until March, and it has kind of evaporated ever since. Simultaneously, it's been really difficult situations to judge him within, whether that is the injury situation and the fact that he's not had a really robust, reliable squad, and this is still the start of a squad building process, or it's the fact that he's had all these external issues like the CEO, executive change, moving out of Ibrox, so many of these small little factors. You know, for example, if you go back to the Champions League knockout game against Kyiv, if that had been at Ibrox, I think the game would have been sold out, and I think it would have been an atmosphere that would have probably put Rangers maybe into a lead in that first half. If you just look at how Ibrox, games of that nature have tended to go at Ibrox over the past couple of seasons. If Rangers get through that game, they get more money, and that money, as we know from the transfer window, would have been so influential to get a couple more players in. So all these small decisions, I think, mean it's difficult to judge him fully. But equally now, the longer that time goes on, and once these positions are filled, topics like his style of play, his record against Celtic, even if he has a lot less money to spend, they will come more into the focus of everyone naturally, because he has to be judged independently as a Rangers manager as well.
Yeah, it's bang on, Chris. That's on the board. That the manager shouldn't be getting asked about these things. The board need to sort this out. And I've got to say, I've seen John Gilligan's interview to Sky, where he says the dream scenario is getting a CEO in before Christmas. I surely hope that it's well before Christmas that Rangers get a CEO in. But yeah, Joshua's right there. I mean, we don't want to be asking the manager about these sort of things. We want to be asking them about football matters, and I'm sure he wants to be getting asked on that as well.
I'm sure he does, but when you're in the position of Rangers manager, it's a position that it carries more weight, it carries more responsibility. It comes with more external factors than a lot of other jobs. There's very few other managers in Britain actually that have that level of scrutiny on them, that have that level of pressure on them. Glasgow is a very unique football city, and Rangers are a very unique football club. Unfortunately, right now they're a football club with issues, and when the manager is the one that is there week after week, and it's the only one that you can actually ask these questions to, I think it's natural that he becomes as Josh says, he becomes like a spokesman almost for the club. If there was a sporting director, you could say, well, he can maybe do the odd interview every now and again to answer some of these things. Time will tell when the new chairman and new chief executive in, how often they wish to do media briefings or media interviews or wish to speak to Club TV, that type of thing. Unfortunately for the manager, he's got games every 3-4 days. He has to speak before and after each of these games. And when there is as many issues in play at present, he just has to almost suck it up and get through it. It's part of the gig. It's part of being the manager of a big football club. But I don't think he can't use it as an excuse, because ultimately his legacy, his future will be defined by what he does on the park. So yes, the Copeland situation was far from ideal. Not being at Ibrox wasn't great. Yes, it's not ideal not to have a chairman or a chief exec or a head of academy, or all of these things that were spoken about. Yeah. Come kick off tonight, the manager has the players that he's bought, he has a squad that he's assembled, he picks the team, he picks the tactics. If Rangers don't go and beat Malmo tonight, you can't say, well, we don't have a chief exec, so that gives you an excuse. It might be frustrating for him in press conferences and during the week, not having a point of contact or however he feels. Come kick-off time, come the time that he has on the training pitch, that's his domain. That's where he has to get the best out of, the best of what he's assembled and what he's built.
Yeah, right, let's move on to the playing side of things, and we'll decide. We'll have a little ponder who we think will start tonight. Before we do that, big shout out, Greg Simpson gets in touch. Morning, guys. Can I get a shout out for the best supporters club, the Stornoway Rangers Supporters Club, up here for work with my dad, and I'll be there for the game tonight. Get a Ranger review night here. Get them to get in touch, Greg. I'd love to go up there to Stornoway, but yeah, big shout out to the Stornoway Rangers Supporters Club. Just off the back of that, incidentally, many of you will be aware, myself and Joshua heading down to London next month, October 16th, Rangers Review live event with Mark Hateley down at the Volley in London. Tickets are available. The link is in the description below this video. It would be lovely to see some of you there. So if you want tickets, hit the link and you can get some tickets for what should be a wonderful evening. The Malmo press conference made me chuckle yesterday, Joshua, as well. You were in attendance at that. One of the questions posed to the manager was quite comical. Twitter aficionados, the Phantom and Lasunis, never knew that their tweets would be highlighted in a Europa League press conference, but I thought the response from the Malmo manager was pretty decent as well. But Dams with the point says that Malmo manager is a bit sure of himself, saying how his team are probably going to win. What did you make of his press conference, and what are you expecting from him?
Well, I thought he handled that question as well as he could have, because for those who have not watched it, he was asked, I can't remember the exact two tweets, so forgive me, but one of them was about being the most, I think, irrelevant club in Denmark, and he kind of he laughed it off. Obviously, a bit of an online rivalry growing between the teams, not least because of, I think it was a social media video that Malmo had put out. He spoke for 22 minutes, and when I thought he was very interesting. Obviously, we've spoken about his style of play and the story behind that. I think that comment is that it's not so much taken out of context, but if you listen to the whole press conference, he's not really. I didn't think he was speaking in an arrogant way. I just think if you take a 22-minute press conference, he's confident in his team. He was asked repeatedly, "Are you the favourites?" Questions like that. It wasn't as if he. That was I think a pre-planned line, and he was waiting to deliver it. Yeah. So personally, I wouldn't read too much into that. I thought there was lots of interesting aspects about how he wants to play, actual football topics, and what he expects from Rangers, why things maybe don't go so well for Malmo in their game against Sparta Prague, and why he was unhappy with that. But yeah, an interesting character. Obviously, we've covered it a bit on the website in the lead up to the game as well, and a big game for Malmo because they're back in European football. Obviously, they are quite far into their league season. It's tailed off a little bit if you look at their form over the last 10 to 15 games, but it's going to be a really difficult game for Rangers to try and start their Europa League campaign with some positivity. And as we've discussed over the last couple of days, Derek, when you have this game in Lyon at home, you need something, I think, in one of these two games to give you a little bit of momentum and make sure this isn't a long campaign where it's over before it's really started. So yeah, people can watch the whole press conference if they want on our YouTube channel. But yeah, some funny moments in it. I don't think I would read too much into his comments about we'll probably win again. But listen, if he makes a similar comment after Malmo have won tonight, you can come back and tell me that I was wrong.
No, it was top bants, more funny lines at press conferences that I'm all for. Staying with you, Joshua, this point caught my eye from Maka. Says, how do we set up against a side who don't have a traditional style of play? You've looked at Malmo in great detail. How do you think Rangers approach this game, and how do you expect Malmo to approach it?
Yeah, it was going to be interesting. The phrase is relationism, and some people will scoff at that as some Gen Z football term.
Football
Exactly. Some sort of abuse that you text me, Derek, in relation to another thing that I've said. But no, effectively, though, I think, and again, Ridstrom spoke about this yesterday. You'll see aspects of the football that looks quite traditional, maybe the way they build up. At times, he wants players to be stuck in set positions. He speaks about the fact that at times, in an attacking sense, if you're a manager and you're always saying to your left winger, be here, wait for this run from your left back to playing behind before the cut back is there. He said that's boring. When he came to the club, what he wanted to do was try and base the attack around the number 10, so it's more unpredictable. Sometimes he says unpredictable for him as well, and that can have, I guess, drawbacks as well if it's unpredictable in a negative sense in a game. But you'll see a lot of players clustering around the ball, a lot of diagonal movements. So a lot of, if Malmo play as they hope, and if they're able to play on the front foot, then a lot of, I think, little interactions that you're maybe not that used to seeing, say, for example, in the Scottish Premiership in particular, about how players interact. It's more about the relationship and the reference point being the ball, as opposed to the right winger always stays wide and the ball comes to him and he knows roughly what he should do when he gets into those certain positions. So to Macca's point, it's going to be interesting to see, because Rangers do quite like to man mark. I think one of the drawbacks of their approach, and you see this in Old Firm games all the time, repeatedly, I think you saw under Van Bronckhorst as well, if you man mark when you drop back instead of going into more of a zonal system, you can be pulled apart pretty easily. If Malmo do tonight, for example, really overload one side of the pitch, and you've got at times, their right winger will come over to the left-hand side, do Rangers follow them there, or do they give them the overload? Are you going to have a left-back follow the right winger all over the pitch? Probably not. So it's going to be interesting to see how Clement approaches it. I suspect that they might be quite aggressive and try and stop Malmo at the top of the pitch, as we've mentioned, as you saw them do against Dinamo Kyiv, just to kind of stop them getting into their flow, because they weren't able to against Sparta Prague. And if you watch those games, you wouldn't have thought Malmo were doing anything that different. And I'm sure that will be what Clement is hoping for tonight when his side play them, that Rangers will be able to influence Malmo's game more than Malmo being able to play on the front foot and kind of dictate the game with the ball.
Best of British says, can Rangers just go for professionalism? That reigns supreme. Professional approach.
Probably not in response to that question, but yeah.
No red cards, please, and let's keep it professional, disciplined, as Neil Warnock famously said. Enjoy yourself, but keep it disciplined. Nevitz, a big happy birthday to him. Says, I hope Rangers can make it a happy one. Many happy returns, buddy. Let's talk teams then, and there's obviously a position up for grabs over at left back. I'd imagine Dujon Sterling might move out of midfield. No Oscar Cortes on the left. Now, we've got our predicted teams. Joshua, do you want to fire either mine's or yours up, and you can talk us through how you would like to see Rangers line up? This is your team, of course. So you have Sterling at left back and a midfield of Barron, Diamandi, and you're keeping Lawrence in that 10 position. Why Sterling, and explain your midfield?
I'm now, as Chris and I talk about before every single game when we get the predicted teams wrong, I'm now going less for what the team I would like to see and more what I think it will be. Just Lawrence plays more often than not, and with Clement at the moment, there's not an abundance of options. If you play Barami at the number 10 spot conventionally, then who plays in the left wing? Because Egerman, I don't see him starting, and then you don't have your option to replace Dessers. If you need to, maybe McCausland could start on the left-hand side. I'm not so sure. Diomande, when he's moved up to the number 10 position, I don't think it suited him that much, and we spoke about his form yesterday in the show, Derek. And Dujon Sterling, I think he's the most natural replacement. Kassim Wirjo can also play left back. Robbie Fraser just hasn't started that many games at left back. Now, he might today, as you said in your predicted teams, is a natural left footer. And if you look at that team, I think it lacks two things. It lacks much pace. Who's quick in there? Not really anyone. If you're thinking about an actual really fast player, Sterling, I think, can get up to speed. But you've not got much breakaway pace, and you've not got much balance on the left-hand side. So maybe that will, force Clement to go for a Fraser or McCausland, a bit of pace or a bit of natural width on the left-hand side. But that's just what I think he'll go for tonight, a bit more of a tried and tested 11. He's played Dujon Sterling at left-back before. That's what I'm going for. But I'll pull your team up because you're going for something slightly different.
Yeah, well, Timothy says, can't wait to see Derek's. Usually, so there you go. There is my team in all its glory. So I have Robbie Fraser on the left. Listen, he's a left back. Just play him. If he's just signed a contract.
But Derek, he's played left wing more. Has he not played left wing more often than he's played left back?
Well, listen, as you just touched on there, Joshua, there's not much balance over on that left-hand side. I just want Robert Fraser. I mean, he'll be thinking to himself, Shefty's out, Ridvan's out, I'm the next natural left-back. Surely I can get a chance now. If he doesn't, then he should be thinking to himself, am I ever going to get an opportunity? So for me, Fraser starts, and I've got a midfield. I've been saying you and me both, Joshua, saying that Nico Raskin needs more game time. I just think that midfield, it's got more legs than if Florence was playing in the 10. I know Headkeeper's saying no Sterling, Derek. I thought he was relatively poor in midfield at the weekend, which is why I've got a natural midfielder in there, Nico Raskin. I get the argument for Dujon Sterling to play, but that midfield has got legs for me. Bayrami's just out there because I think he just has to play there at this moment in time, given the options that are available to the manager. Chris, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts. Would you go with mine, Joshua's, or a combination of the two, or something completely different?
I think it's more likely to be Joshua's, to be honest. I think Dujon Sterling will play left back. I'd be surprised if Robbie Fraser gets the nod. Lawrence, I would rather see Bayrami at 10, but as we spoke about earlier on, there's circumstances there. So I think Josh's side looks the more likely one. We've gone from a place just a couple of weeks ago of new signings coming in and some players coming back to fitness, and the squad looking slightly better, the squad looking a bit stronger. You lose a couple of players out of that, and you can quickly lose a lot of lose a bit of strength and depth. So I do get your point on Robbie Fraser. Still not convinced he's at the level. If the manager was going to play him tonight, why not play him at the weekend? Give him a game at the back. He must have. It's obvious for several weeks now, unfortunately, after that Shefty red card at Hampden, which, as we touched on at the time, should never have been a red card, but bygones are bygones and all that. He knows
that's
that.
Not bygone. That is the worst I've ever seen.
He knows, but the Clement knows that Shefty's not going to be able to play in this game, so why not play Robbie Fraser in the game at the weekend? Give him 90 minutes and then come in. It seems a big call, and seems quite unlikely to go from very, very little first team involvement to then going straight into a European game. I know you say just throw him in, see how good he is. We're not really still sure how good he is. I think that's part of the problem. The rest of it, I don't think there's many options. I'd be surprised if I say Sterling doesn't go on at left back. Dessers obviously plays, Czerny obviously plays, Diomande, he comes in somewhere by Rami, I think, off that left hand side. I know people will probably lambast you both for picking James Tavernier at right back, but if he was going to be rested again, it was at the weekend. So Tav plays, and I think, as we touched on pre-match on Saturday, Josh, that suits a proper partnership. That looks to be the one that Clement is going to go with, is going to stick with, as and when he can. That's going to be your two, I would imagine.
Derek, there's a comment. Sorry, there's a shouty comment here, and normally the shouty comments pass by me, but I'll bring it up. Czerny is left foot playing on the left. There is maybe a little bit of an argument tonight to do something different, purely, and we've maybe not seen Clement do that enough when he's not had wingers, for example, when he's not had enough depth in a certain position. If you look at that, if I go back to the team I've picked, now there's some good players in there. You can see Bayrami. I thought his final ball was good at the weekend. Czerny still getting up to speed. Dessers has been scoring goals, but there isn't, as highlighted, there's not much width on the left. There's not much pace up top. I think the starting 11 will tell us quite a lot about the game Clement expects it to be, but I think there is a little bit of there's an argument maybe he should try something a little bit different tonight, whether that be, I don't know, Czerny on the left, or to then give you a natural option out there. Maybe McCausland comes in on the right hand side and you play Bayrami in the middle. I don't know, but there isn't there's literally no natural options on the left. You're missing your first two, apart from Fraser. Okay, you're missing your first two left backs, your first two left wingers. Does that not merit maybe then doing something different and adapting? I'd suggest maybe it does.
For those of you saying why chuck Fraser in, he's not played, it's too big a game. I remember Walter chucking in back in the day in the 90s against Ajax, Greg Shields and Scott Wilson at Ibrox, and then more recently Darren Cole against Bursaspor over in Turkey for his debut in the Champions League. Listen, the manager sees him every day in training. I don't think this game is going to overawe a player like Robbie Fraser, but I get the point. I think it will likely be Dujon Sterling at left back. But if I'm Robbie Fraser, I'll be thinking to myself, if I can't get a game and two of the left backs are not playing, then when am I going to play? So, it will be intriguing to see what the team will be. Before we wrap up, I don't know if any of you seen Sam Lammers last night scoring for FC20. Good goal, to be fair. I don't think Anana covered himself in glory. 20 getting a draw at Old Trafford against Man United. What do you make of it? We'll come to you, Chris. Did you see the goal? Bring him home?
No. Is the short? I think that's the short and polite answer to that.
Good finish, though.
Fair play. It was a really good finish. This guy's redemption curve, as Josh always calls them, in terms of Matondo and Ridvan and others.
Arc, Chris. Redemption arc. Yeah.
Not the first time I've got one of your modern phrases wrong, but fair play to him for continuing to rebuild his career. But I think we saw enough during his time at Rangers to suggest that Rangers and Scottish football was not for him. I say fair play to him. Don't wish him any ill will, but not for me as a Rangers player.
Well, I hope Cyril Dessers or Hamza Igaman are doing it likewise when Rangers go there in January time. I think that game Rangers go down and play Man United, but they're having a bit of bother down there. Right, that'll do us. Big thank you to everyone tuning in as ever. Big thank you to Joshua and to Chris. What's the plan today then, Joshua, when you're heading over to the ground?
It's a 6:45 kickoff here, but it is absolutely chucking it. So I was going to try and see a bit of Malmo today, but I might not. I might just do some work because it's pretty rainy. So we'll see if it lets up. I'll get up to the stadium nice and early, and then I'll be on with Chris before the game, reacting to whatever team which you or I will almost certainly have got wrong, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, is Kieran Dowell in the squad? Is he in the European squad?
He wasn't in it last season. I think he's in it. He played obviously on the right against Dundee United, didn't he? So
Clement. Yeah, his teams certainly have a lot of us raising our eyebrows in recent weeks, and I'm sure tonight's will do the same. But as long as they do the business tonight, then I'm sure everyone will be happy with that. Before we go, how do you see it going, Chris? Are Rangers going to get a good result and off to a flyer tonight?
No, there's the most difficult thing for us in the last 32 minutes. I will take a sporting, hard-fought, well-earned 1-1 draw and say no more about it. Get back to Glasgow and focus on Premiership matters.
Rangers reckon Sweden's not too good. Joshua, can they get a result tonight, do you think?
I was going to say 1-1, and I always say 1-1 when I am not sure about a game, which is often. So I think it'll be. I think you never know. I'd be more confident of Rangers in Europe than some domestic games. That's been a theme of the last 5-6 years. There are limited options. We shall see.
Yeah, I'm going with Peggy. She says 2-1, so I'm going at a 2-1 at Rangers. So let's hope they can do the business tonight. Right, that'll do us. We'll have all the usual pre-match and post-match reaction to come, folks. So stay tuned for that. If you aren't heading over to Sweden, if you are, then give us a shout. If you are heading over there, I'll be over there myself as well. Cannot wait for that. Right, we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.